Manchester United have knocked out Arsenal in the third round of the FA Cup, and in this video we're going to be breaking down how they did it, including a look at the tactics involved that helped United keep Arsenal out for over 60 minutes with 10 men. With both sides at different phases in their journey, Arsenal obviously a little bit further along, Manchester United needed to have a different option or a different tact to take into this game if they were going to get something out of it, and that meant being a little bit more defensive, relinquishing the ball, or as Ruben Amorim would put it, controlling the game without the ball, and that was a key aspect. And they did this through their back three, who was aggressive, defensively solid, and aerially very difficult to beat. The wing-backs dropped back into a normal standard wing-back position, and that meant that there was quite a lot of onus on this midfield too. They needed a little bit of help, and they needed to stop Arsenal from coming through the centre of the pitch, which meant that Ugarte and Man Utd needed to be quite compact, condensing this space in the centre of the park to prevent Arsenal from not only dropping Havertz in, but also to prevent them from running midfielders through the centre of United's team. This also meant that they needed to prevent the major threat in Martin Odegaard, dictating and controlling possession and then finding those killer passes through the lines in between Manchester United's defence. To do this, they dropped back both Bruno Fernandes and Alejandro Garnacho from their normal attacking positions, and it made something of a midfield four. Now this prevented Arsenal really from going through the centre, and it forced them out wide into these positions, bringing on Sterling, using Martinelli, and although they had 1v1 opportunities, it really didn't amount to all too much because the crosses that then later came into the box were dealt with very easily by Martinez, Maguire and De Ligt, and it meant that with their 11 men, Manchester United actually ended up looking quite comfortable. And you can see what I'm talking about right here. So this is the Manchester United side. You've got their right wing back. You've got the three centre-backs who are quite close and knit together. You've got your left wing back here in Dalot, who's following a run that's going round. But look at the position of Martin Odegaard. Now, this isn't necessarily where he would want to be. He'd want to be a little bit more central. He'd want to be able to be in between these lines and in these pockets. And occasionally he did find himself there. But more often than not, what you had was this Manchester United midfield four being able to drop back and prevent that space from being exposed. And it meant that Bruno Fernandes came from his attacking position, Alejandro Garnacho did exactly the same thing, and then you give a bit more freedom to Kobbie Mainoo and Manuel Ugarte to be able to go and be that little bit more aggressive to the Arsenal midfield. It meant that Arsenal then were forced out into these wide areas, forcing them to really run down the sides of Manchester United, but with their back five it meant that they were able to contest that pretty easily with their two wing backs, while also having that defensive three, that core defensive unit, still maintaining a set defensive regiment. It was really well done. Let's now take a look at the United goal, because I thought United did quite a good job of opening up Arsenal and also capitalising on a couple of Arsenal mistakes. We're going to start here. We're going to look at Harry Maguire, because he's going to play a long raking pass over to Diogo Dalot out on Man United's right hand side, Arsenal's left. But we need to take into consideration the fact that Arsenal wanted to try and press United's back three, and they did this through their forward-thinking players, trying to prevent progression through the centre of the pitch. Nothing wrong with that, it's absolutely fine. But one thing that does happen is that Miles Lewis-Skelly decides to get aggressive onto Diogo Dalot, and I've got to say that he has to win this header. And the reason he's got to win this header is not only because of the Arsenal players who are gravitated onto the one side of the pitch. Jorginho is just here as well. We can actually focus on Arsenal's midfield three here. You've got Odegaard, you've got Merino, and you've got Jorginho. And it's this midfield three that actually is focused on the other side of the pitch. So when the ball gets switched, they're out of position essentially. They're giving a little bit more space to United, who have really opened up the pitch on both sides. So Miles Lewis-Skelly decides to commit and try to win this header. The reason he's got to win this header is because of Gabriel behind him. It exposes Gabriel a little bit because of the position of Alejandro Garnacho right here. As we move this on, because Garnacho has now got to win the ball because of Diogo Dalot's header, it means that Gabriel has to come out to contest. Look, you can see Gabriel here. He's coming to contest the ball, and this is where the second problem comes in. Gabriel fails to win the ball, and because of that, it means that Man United now have an opportunity to really start to counter. If we take a look at the amount of Arsenal players who are wrong side, look at this. There's so many of them, and Gabriel's going to be one of them as well. It means that then exposes Saliba on the other side, and all of these knock-on effects have come at the same time. And it means that Man United have a major opportunity. Garnacho drives really well with the ball, and then look at this. You've essentially got a 3-on-2 because Bruno Fernandes, Højlund and Garnacho are all running at Timber and Saliba. Garnacho does a sensational job of picking up his head to find this pass into Bruno Fernandes. You'd expect him to try and play a pass into Højlund to make that run, but he finds Bruno Fernandes in acres of space because of the run that Timber gets taken on by Højlund. Really, really well done. And as it goes to Bruno Fernandes, it's bobbling, but he manages to square it just into the goal. Fantastic finish, a brilliant connection, and United go 1-0 up. But again, it's capitalising on those moments. Even though Man United have quite a defensively set unit, they managed to expose this Arsenal mistake really, really well. But a spanner gets thrown in the works, and in about 4 minutes, Manchester United have had a man sent off in Dalot, and they've also conceded, which means that something needs to change. What Ruben Amorim did was this. Alejandro Garnacho dropped back into that Dalot position as their right wing back. It meant that there needed to be a reshuffle in midfield as well though, because they needed to still make sure that they were protecting the middle of the pitch, and this is where the change in role for Bruno Fernandes came. Normally he'd be here in this attacking midfield area, dropping back into this left hand side to help with that build up or prevention of build up from that Arsenal side, but he was moved over to this right hand channel to protect Garnacho because of his added work rate and his ability to start to read the play. This shuffled Manu across and almost take up that Bruno Fernandes role. They still wanted to make sure they had some kind of offensive capability, which is why Rasmus Højlund stayed a little bit further ahead of the 3 in midfield. And that's exactly what it created. It created a 3 in midfield. Manu going to go and contest one side, Ugarte coming across whenever necessary, and Bruno Fernandes doing the same on the other side. This gave Ugarte a freer role, almost an aggressor role, and an ability to really go forwards and help with either Fernandes or Manu, depending on where he needed to be. And this meant that when United were compact and when they stopped that midfield progression through the centre of the pitch, it again caused the same problem, and it forced Arsenal to go out wide. It still made Martin Ødegaard's life a little bit more difficult because he wasn't able to get those passes in between the lines. If anything, it made it that little bit more difficult because you still had Mashraoui coming to contest, you still had Manu coming to go and help, and it meant that the lines, because United played a bit more of a lower block, the lines just weren't there. That's not an option, and it meant that Martin Ødegaard needed to start to rely on crosses, reverse crosses into the box from this area in front of Man United, and that was the main thing. Everything happened in front of them because of this really good defensive shape. And you can see that right here. So you've got Garnacho, who's dropped from that right-siding attacking position to take up a role as that right wing back. You've also got Bruno Fernandes, who's made that movement over into this right-hand channel from that left-hand space, and you've then got your midfield 3 with Kobbie Mainoo and Manuel Ugarte. You've still got Manchester United's back 3 with De Ligt, Maguire and Martinez, and it leaves Mashraoui to be able to go and contest with Kobbie Mainoo. But the important thing is the prevention through the centre of the pitch again. This is a no-go area because of Ugarte's aggression, because of his tenacity, and him along with Bruno Fernandes and Kobbie Mainoo stopped that central progression, forcing Arsenal out wide. And it meant that when United ended up dropping into this position, it meant that Arsenal didn't really have too many options. Raheem Sterling's got the ball here, and he's going to try and drive at a player, but the problem that he's got is that if you could drive at Mainoo, you could drive at Mashraoui, but where are you going? Are you going to try and take this space? If so, what are you going to do with it? You're going to try and cross into the box to alone Havertz against 3 aggressive centre-backs? Probably not. Are you going to try and recycle again? Again, that might be seen as a little bit negative. He decides to try and run at a player, and although he beats Mashraoui, although he beats Mainoo, it just ends up just falling apart because of this really good United core, that tight-knit unit, meaning that there's no space for him. You could recycle back to Odegaard, but again, that's not really going to do anything for you. Yes, then you could then recycle back round, but it's all about the space that United didn't afford Arsenal that helped them to keep them out. And just so ends up that all of these players, I mean, look at this is crazy. Sterling's trying to take on at least 5 Man United players. It's just madness. And obviously he then ends up getting tackled. Arsenal have to go and reset, they have to recycle, and it ends up breaking down. But again, that's really good from this Manchester United side, who are willing to do those hard yards, who were willing to suffer during the match to be able to get the result that they needed. One final tactical adaptation that was made was once Joshua Zirkzee came on, instead of occupying that same role that Højlund played to try and make those runs in beyond, while he also did that, he mainly dropped back to try and help his side from a defensive point of view, occupying this left-hand side to best try to stop Martin Odegaard, but also to help out Mazraoui on this side. This meant that Collier was able to come in field after he was substituted on for Mainoo. He was able to come in field and help out Ugarte to again prevent that progression through the centre of the pitch. It meant that Bruno Fernandes was then able to come out and contest Lewis Skelly and Martinelli, and it meant that overall Man United were a bit more defensively resolute, sacrificing that main attacker to be able to get themselves over the line once they had the end in sight. It was again another good tactical change from Amorim to help out with that Man United side, especially down this left hand side. United really stopped Arsenal on a number of occasions, Arsenal focusing down this right using Odegaard, who made 10 key passes in this game, but I thought United did a really good job of making sure that they're able to limit Arsenal as much as possible. And you can see that tactical change right here. So the substitutes that were made were Diallo coming on for Garnacho, you had Collier coming on for Mainoo, and obviously Joshua Zirkzee came on for Højlund. But look at the position that he's taking up, just on that left-hand side, making sure that he's able to help his side be defensively resolute. And then you've got your midfield 4, you've got your defensive 5, and look how difficult it is to break down because of the compactness between the lines. There was no space. Raheem Sterling has no space here. Declan Rice would look to drive, but again, there's not a lot of space. The line that's being kept is quite high, which means that they're able to really squeeze that space in between. And you've also got a load of Arsenal players who can then be converged upon out on this left-hand side, but also this right-hand side. United did a really good job of stopping that progression from Arsenal, especially through the centre of the pitch. They were well worth the draw, in my opinion, because of their resolute display, their willingness to suffer and work, and overall their quality that allowed them to get themselves over the line. It then went to penalties, and we know how that ended, 5-3 in favour of Manchester United. And as they say, the rest is history. But of course, guys, let me know what you think in the comment section below. What did you make of Arsenal? What did you make of United? And how did you find this game? Let me know your thoughts. I would love to hear from you. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something new, and I hope to see you in the next one. But until then, my friends, take care.